Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves an album from an act named Carl Anderson titled Hillbilly Heaven. And if we switch over to here, we have it on Bandcamp. And it's nice to be returning to Carl Anderson's work. I have reviewed some of his stuff before. I do remember reviewing Missouri Breaks, if I'm not mistaken. Get the album art a little bit bigger here. You've got some really trippy looking bulls here, which is all cool. We're going to listen through all of the tracks on this album from start to finish. And we've got a few long ones here. Medicine Cabinet being 9:19 and then God's Wind being an incredible 11:34. There is of course an intermission at the halfway point, which is nice and considerate, although considering the quality of Carl Anderson's work, I don't think we'll probably need it, but we'll see how we go. We're going to listen through this album from start to finish, starting with Gerald 1 and 2, and we're going to hear what we think. And actually, just before we get into it, we've got all songs by Mr. Carl Anderson, produced by Carl Anderson and Marvin Menz, mixed mastered by Mr. Marvin Menz at Tide Studios London. Guitar, bass, piano keys, string arrangements by Carl Anderson, drums by Mr. Jim Dawley, saxophone by Mr. Jordan Marza, trumpet by Mr. Josue Yosu, a violin by Mr. Nino Chickvilads, and Human Toboggan by Sir Robert Bjelland. That's a tricky one. But yeah, we'll get into it now. I just wanted to give everyone a bit of credit before we go into it. Let's go. Gerald 1 and 2.
Well, I'm not the average person.
Oh, do you believe me? It's not a new feeling, no.
I just didn't like the army or the people in it.
Since I've been in Indiana, I've done 300 or 400 natal birth charts for people.
You're so scared I can tell you that picture's got a headache.
Well, I started meeting older women in me.
I remember Carl Anderson's work is very, very, very atmospheric. It's not just music. Sometimes you just have ambience there and vocal samples and storytelling and stuff like that.
Built like football players.
I'm just an ordinary person, living an ordinary life.
And if I didn't have that to think about, I think I would have done been off on the deep end myself.
How long has it been since I dreamed I was there in Hillbilly Heaven?
That interesting minor scale there that we're playing on that trumpet, it's like a melodic or a harmonic minor. It has that running of the bulls kind of vibe to it, that Spanish flair to it, which it matches well with the album art. Love the dynamic range and the phrasing of it, as well as the intensity of the different notes and how it's structuring them, and is gorgeous, you know. Ooh, nice trill there, very professional, dude. Very professional. Something I've just got to fix really quick. Just needed to just double check the camera for a sec, you know. Can't be too sure about these things. Because like this is a special occasion for me. It's not often I get to review an artist or musician that I worked with's next album, you know? Often because people struggle to make albums nowadays, you know? So again, kudos to Carl Anderson for putting another record out. It's genuinely not an easy thing to do. I love the synth and the way it's being panned from side to side. It's reverberating, sort of pulsating.
Gerald S. is grossly delusional and thought disordered. He is currently on the following medications. Haloperidol, 32 milligrams daily. Benztropine B, 4 milligrams daily.
So like people like seeing this stuff because they're on drugs, like the Hillbilly Heaven?
Dr. Petrelli in Detroit looked at my transcripts and he started going like this. Gerald, just what could you have done if anything had ever went right for you?
It's very unsettling, isn't it?
In one patient at one time. shows almost every one of the major features of schizophrenia. His thinking is disorganized. The thoughts are loosely connected. He has formed delusional ideas. Some of those delusions are grandiose. Some of them are paranoid. He has disturbances in his mood. His mood is, in some cases, almost absent, and in other cases is totally inappropriate.
Lovely mixing with these guitar parts, these arpeggiated part muted guitar parts, with the guy talking about the mental health of this person and the state they're in. With the synths from the start continuously. Oh. Okay. Well done bringing it in at the halfway point, because this is, of course, a 6-minute 40 track. Like, I don't know why I wasn't expecting it to come in like this. It says Gerald 1 and 2 here, so it makes sense that there'd be a second half.
I mean, in walked this one old dude with green teeth, and I couldn't think of nothing to do, so I just reached out and kicked old green teeth right in the knee.
Great chord note groove there, great chord note accent there. Oh. That's a sexy bass tone we've got there as well, dude. And it's nice that we're not just rolling with the root notes there.
That's my father's home, and he worked, and that's clean money. He worked 31 years at Chrysler's, doing 300-pound deadlifts, 3 a second for 31 years.
See, I still have this male aggression thing, and I don't know if you're gonna kill me, and I don't care. Enough's enough.
Again, it's great. You can listen to the story and enjoy it, and the music provides this incredible backing for it. You know, it doesn't feel like the music is trying to tear away from the story that's being told by these reports that are being provided to us. It's a very unusual way to start an album, because usually you get singing, or if it's an instrumental, you don't have any vocals at all. But it's almost like it's trying to tell us a message by not being too obvious or blunt about it.
That's what you're afraid to say. What is your explanation of that? Because you can't say, you're making me not scared, so I'm not scared. Well, this dude's playing boogie woogie with me. If I'm not scared, I won't kill you. What did you listen to?
It's nice to have mentioned the boogie woogie with the piano comes in. It gives more sense to why we have this particular type of kind of bluesy guitar style here. That's a tasteful solo there on the keys.
I'm not talking to you at all. You realize this is my mother and I'm trying to keep her alive. Now, what do you recommend, Doc? Because we were getting 20 gunshots a night, and I couldn't figure out where they were coming from. I went out there and found out everybody was shooting everybody. I don't have any fun at all. The police department was fun. There ain't no fun out there killing people, no. Okay, let me give it to you a different way. How long has it been since I dreamed I was there in Hillbilly Heaven?
Again, how long is a dream since I was in Hillbilly Heaven? I assume that we're going to get more of an understanding of it as we go along and more context to it, considering we have Gerald 3 and 4 next. You know, because this is Act 1, The Mind, with Gerald 1 and 2, Old Friends and Green Teeth, Gerald 3, The Voices, and Gerald 4, Hillbilly Heaven, and then Medicine Cabinet. And then, of course, you have Intermission, The Red Menace, 1,000 Suns and God's Win here. It gets real wild here. Look at the names of these songs, dude. It's so intense. This is such a visceral experience. I genuinely don't know how to predict it, and I don't want to, but I'm liking the fact that we're changing the lead melody here to this guitar solo. The mixing is done really well. The EQing is great. And it has that classic kind of 70s kind of rock guitar and a tone to it. Nice late chain on it as well. Because that isn't just a solo for the sake of having a solo there. We've got some key ideas, some key melodic concepts that we are attempting to repeat and develop on as we go along. there is clear intent there and not just have a meandering additional kind of color, a bit of coloration to the arrangement there. It's meant to sort of like improve the original musical theme and kind of add a sense of sophistication in that regard, I suppose. Also, having something in the higher range is nice aside from those high keys. Two or three different musical motifs in here. You know, because this is relatively through composed. Oh, it holds so well though, doesn't it? That was a filthy, slick secondary solo that we had here. It just cuts at you, dude. But it's mixed so well. You know, it's got that lovely EQing where you don't have that harshness in the 4 kilohertz range. It is impressive, dude. I'm happy with Gerald 1 and 2. It's almost like we're listening to a movie. I'm keen to hear what happens next in Gerald 3. Again, we got bum, 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 that flamenco running of the balls kind of sound and tonality to the to that guitar part, and the panning of it is really intriguing. I think we've got 2 different guitars playing different bits on either side. There's slightly different textures to them. So is that like 3 different guitar parts in amongst the drums?
He has purposeless, aimless behavior on the board. He's a textbook case. He combines all those things in one person. Jerry's voices may at times say, "You raped that woman," in a case where he may have just seen.
That's disgusting and terrible, and I'm really like that our brains can do that. You know, it's disgusting that our brains are capable of creating those sorts of chemical imbalances.
Seen a woman on the street. The voices will accuse him of assaulting her. One of the things that worries me about Jerry and about many patients is at times his voices tell him to do things.
That intense sort of vibrato or tremolo, whatever the sound it is, that reverberation, that oscillation there amongst this trumpet solo. It's gorgeous, dude. We're really doing well with stacking the different instruments in the mix and the arrangement to kind of get the best kind of overall sound, overall combination of them. And that distorted bass there is... It's weird to have the bass pan to the right, but that's okay. You know, just because it's unusual doesn't mean it's bad.
In just the short time he's been in this program, the voices at times have told him that he's got to leave because we're going to hurt him. So obviously they say things that greatly distress him.
This music sort of almost sounds as if it's meant to a realization about the intensity and the risk that's associated with Gerald's condition. That flat second that we're going up to and modulating off of that sounds very sinister, you know? Unsettling, and I think that's kind of the point, isn't it? You know, from the standpoint of this being an album, I have to admit I'm very, very happy with what I've heard so far because it's encouraging me to hear more of it. You know, there's nothing off-putting at this point. It's like, yo, you know the story that's unraveling before your eyes, or not necessarily unraveling, but unfolding before your eyes. Don't you want to know what happens at the end? And that's what you need from an album. You need the album to carry you along on a journey. And we've got Gerald number 4 now. Oh, synths? Or strings. They're string arrangements, aren't they?
Okay, let me give it to you a different way. How long has it been since I dreamed I was there in Hillbilly Heaven? That's what you're afraid to say. What is your explanation for that? Because you can't say it. Or how long has it been since Town Without Pity for rape? Or how long has it been since the man who shot Liberty Valance? What is your explanation for that, guy?
Oh, that's fun. It's nice to have these kind of ravey, trancey synthesizers on the bottom of these strings. Nice filtering there.
Truly, deep down, he knows that this is the last chance he's got of having anything and being able to control anything that he wants or tries to do.
It's like nuclear fusion, except it's human fusion. There's a mass loss to proton. One heat abstraction goes up in the electron, spins around, comes back down into the proton to form the mind, and the mind can be reduced to one atom.
Oh, that was heavy. Oh, that was heavy. I wasn't expecting it to hit like that, eh? That explanation of that mindset being brought down to one atom like that, it's brutal, dude. It's a nice way to kind of finish it before it drops into that heavier situation here where we have those kicks. I wasn't expecting it to go in a pseudo EDM kind of situation, but no, bringing in the trumpets and the drums here with the hi-hats is a smart move. The saxophone! Ooh. My goodness. Oh no, hang on. Hang on, I'm so confused. Which instrument is this? Is this the saxophone, the trumpet, or the violin? Because I think I can hear a violin in there as well. Oh. I get it. They're having like a battle or something like that. They're having a duet and they kind of let one person go and then the other person goes. I understand it. It's incredibly creative, to be honest. Again, like, I am completely being carried by this without needing to be told more of the story, you know? Just, we got that little bit more from Gerald about, what can you tell me about, you know, like, when was the last time I went to Hillbilly Heaven? Oh, those reverse takes are gorgeous, dude. They had an instant softness to the overall tone of it. It's glistening, isn't it? I'm not sure how to approach this, I'm not sure how to take it. There's also this really interesting sound design thing where there's some low frequencies that I think through being reversed, where there's like, you can actually feel the physical pressure of that low end when you're hearing open, you know, closed headphones like this. I think that's really cool. Just that you can actually kind of feel the music, you know what I mean? That would have to come down to sub bass or something like that, wouldn't it? See, when you've got all that mistiness and reverb going on in that solo section there with the strings and such, having the guitar come in with a slow, you know, a faster attack and kind of pierce through it like a sword through butter, it's just it's a splendid choice there in regards to the structuring of this track. That's a pretty slick playing, to be honest. It's quite technical.
To me, it's like their
Nice
mind
resolution
is
here.
racing like a motor is racing continuously, and I believe it goes on that way, even when they're sleeping. I have to keep telling myself nothing hasn't gotten so bad that it couldn't get worse, and I really and truly believe that. And if I didn't have that to think about, I think I would have been off on the deep end myself.
That's kind of it's incredibly sad, obviously, that woman's at a point now where she's just trying to convince herself that it couldn't possibly get worse. But there's also that doubt that it can, you know, and that things are just going to go terrible, because that's the one keeping her from going off the deep end, which is interesting because, you know, like when people are suffering from mental health issues, the struggle with that can also bring other people with them, and it's a terrible thing, you know. Which is why, obviously, in most situations, it's really important to support people who are going through that kind of stuff. You know, just do the best you can to keep them safe and yourself safe. But it's easier said than done, right? Yeah, an incredible way to leave Gerald. You know, you got more of an outlet of who he was and the kind of risks associated and the doubts about his ability to kind of be able to keep himself out of trouble. And you know, even he's not really sure what's going to happen, and people around him it's interesting just how much we've learned in such a short space of time. We've got Medicine Cabinet next, number 4. Number 4.
I think every American over the age of 12 must be conscious of the word narcotics. I think it's a scare word, as it should be. We know what heroin, morphine, and cocaine can do to the human body and the human personality. People who are hooked on these drugs are seldom hooked in the dark. But there's a strong possibility that at this moment in your medicine cabinet, you have a drug that can hook you just as completely, injure you just as terribly as heroin or morphine. I'm speaking of barbiturates, sleeping pills. Tonight I'm going to...
Oh, damn. I kind of had a feeling that this might be related to what Gerald was going through. Maybe Gerald was suffering from the ill effects of some addiction to narcotics or something like that. But I didn't necessarily think we'd go straight into Medicine Cabinet like that.
The story of the thousands of Americans who suffer the agonies of barbiturate addiction. The tragedy of these people is that their plight is a terrible accident. They started out taking legitimate doses of legitimate medicine. Suddenly there was a monkey on their backs. Every person who lives is subject to stresses and pressures from outside. For some of us, at some times, the pressures seem almost too much to bear. You take pills to...
Great, consistent 1 and 2 and 16th note groove. There was some 8th note groove with the 16th occasionally. The guitar riffs on the sides are nice and energetic, and the drums are there to match it. Great overall energy here as we saunter our way towards becoming sort of more and more depressed about the state of this kind of stuff in the world.
Knock you out. You drink coffee to pull yourself together. And after a while, neither one really works. You can't go to sleep and you can't wake up. You don't have that feeling of sweet relaxation anymore. You know now that the pills are killing you, but you don't know how to stop.
That's why I never took sleeping pills. I've always been afraid of taking sleeping pills because, you know, like, how do you know what's going to happen, right? It just creeps me out, dude. I'm kind of with the way things are now with people's understandings of this stuff. I'm so glad that I've been more careful about it.
Tell me, Dr. Venus, what are barbiturates?
Barbiturates are synthetic materials.
What's been their principal use?
To cause sleep and to relieve nervousness.
Are they addicting?
Yes, they are addicting drugs.
How do barbiturates differ from narcotics in their effect?
They have practically no stimulating action, whereas morphine, heroin, and the opium derivatives usually stimulate as well as depress.
I like how we're instantiating a different sort of instrumental or musical concept for each development of the story. Like there was a subtle change there in regards to the riffs that we were playing there. It transitioned easily from the first section, but it's just great to let the listener know, oh, I'm getting you information as a new character, but at the same time, I'm not completely alienated, due to what we had before.
In the lifespan of man, youth has traditionally been the moment for experimentation, adventure, self-analysis, and rebellion. Rebellion against parental authority and social restrictions. Since the beginning of time, however, growing older has taken care of all that. But the swift advances of modern technology have changed the pattern. An overdose of bennies can wash out every inhibition, and a couple of goofballs can transport you to a limbo world where nothing matters, not even you.
If barbiturates are so dangerous, why are they so readily obtained?
It's making me very uncomfortable because I think I know people personally who've dealt with this stuff. It's an educational experience, and I appreciate what Carl Anderson is doing here. It's smart music. It makes a lot of sense to make an album like this, but it's a very raw thing. I think that's maybe part of why he had an intermission in the middle. That was kind of a smart move, you know? It's considerate. Well done, Carl Anderson. That's awesome.
Well, legally, they are not so readily obtainable. It requires a physician's prescription. A recent federal law now requires a prescription throughout the United States. But isn't it easy for addicts to circumvent the law? I don't really know the answer to that.
That money sound there, that Foley there. I know it's been a while since it happened. I was reacting to it immediately, but I was also just paying attention as well to how he panned the ka-chings on either side. It is a commentary on the fact that there's a lot of money to be made off of people addicted to drugs, which obviously isn't ideal. And that drum group just keeps going and going and going. We're not needing to go half time or normal time because it's cashy. We get where we're headed. We can handle this for 9 minutes, you know? Slight sort of breaks and fills occasionally help though. What is that happening on the left though, right? Really phenomenal, interesting riser there. I assume it's a guitar related thing or something like that. I don't even want to imagine the effects chain you need to be able to do something like that. A lot of reverb and delay. Sort of seemed more like a cloud than anything like that, you know?
Illegal traffic in these drugs in this country is a very major problem today. There are about 10 billion of these pills manufactured each year for legal use.
Because like the quality of this recording this insinuates to me that this is like this is an older recording, like from like the 60s or the 70s or something like that. So how long have they been having this problem?
About half of these, or 5 billion, find their ways into illegal channels and are ultimately misused.
Oh, lovely bell work on those rides there. I know I'm commenting on the drums a lot. Part of it is because the guitar riffs are nice and consistent, and you get them the first time, and they're there to support whatever's happening in the vocal or like the story time samples.
have your name, please? Just your first name.
Margaret.
And your age?
42.
Your occupation?
I'm a housewife.
You have any children?
I have 3 sons.
Margaret, how did you start taking barbiturates?
I was an alcoholic, and I had been off drink for about 90 days, and I was going through a particularly nervous period, and a well-meaning friend of mine gave me 2 little yellow capsules, and she told me they would relax me if I took them.
No. How did these pills make you feel, Margaret?
They made me feel high, and I was floating, and all my troubles and my problems seemed remote, and I seemed unattached.
What problems did barbiturates...
The hand drums here, that kind of tribal, kind of mystical element here is clever, both in terms of its relative loudness. It's like a sub-layer, isn't it?
...cause in your personal life?
Well, my whole life became distorted. Everything revolved around getting these pills and protecting my habit. My friends would ask me why I was acting strangely, and I was defiant and would insult them and tell them I wasn't taking a thing, and it was obvious that I wasn't myself, and I just became a pathological liar. When I was a guest in people's homes, the first thing I would do is excuse myself and go to the bathroom.
It's nice that we're allowing a lot of space in the mix with just having these automated pan synths in the background. Very cloudy. Again, kind of like almost synthetic ambience to it. And amongst these occasional kicks that are starting to increase a little bit with these hi-hat
And I
bits.
would raid their medicine chest. I'd take everything that looked like it might have barbiturate in it.
How many pills did you take in, let's say, a week?
I'd take at least 100 or 150 a week. The binges became closer and closer together till they almost merged into one big binge, and I became terribly frightened.
What happened when you tried to break the habit?
I would start perspiring from every pore of my body. My leg muscles would cramp, and I'd be very, very sick at my stomach, and I'd be terrified. I don't know what I'd be afraid of, but I'd hear strange noises and shadows, and even the movement of a window shade would throw me into a complete state of terror. And when you're lying there so frightened, and you know there isn't a pill in the house.
I don't like the fact that we're doing the noises around the headphones. I totally understand why we're doing it, and it's really, really awesome. And I have to give a round of applause to Carl Anderson for making this happen, because it's really appropriate for the situation, but it is so unsettling, you know?
Leave your agony.
If you're watching this in your phone without headphones on, I'd recommend listening to this through speakers. You're going to get that best version of it that way. Even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, just stick with it, you know?
And you know you can't get out to get any. The panic you feel, it's indescribable. It's awful.
That woman's gone through a horrible period, hasn't she? The 9 minutes just flew by though, didn't it? There's a clear passion for the subject matter within this performance, but at the same time, it's like an oral spectacle. You know, it's so full of life and full of vigor and full of care. But also, there's a I think there's a veiled, well, not really a veiled. There's a contempt for the situation and a representation of the chaos it causes. Nice way to finish, though, having this kind of guitar solo amongst these really nicely panned drum fills.
That pills taken in excess have a serious potential for harm.
And they're like stepping up a synth arpeggiator in the background. The sequencer there is just phenomenal, dude. It's such a lovely texture. I think we had it at the start, though, didn't we, among the strings?
But the abuse of barbiturates, sedatives and sleeping pills, can be far more dangerous. For barbiturates today are the #1 cause of death by poisoning in the United States.
Oh.
There are the facts. There's only one way to interpret them. Take these drugs only on doctor's orders and handle them with respect. Avoid the good-bad drug dilemma. This is Paul Newman at Universal Studios in Universal City, California. Thank you.
Oh, that's very unsettling. I do think we need an interlude at this point. Intermission, please, Carl Anderson. Thank you. Oh, sounds like we're listening to like a modern pop single. It's nice to have the birds there. Thank you, Carl Anderson. I think we know exactly. I think that, to be fair, this is the first time I've had an actual intermission in the middle of an album. That theatrical dramatic vibe is fantastic, dude. I love it. Great work. Fantastic vibes, man. Fantastic. The birds make me feel very peaceful. I don't know what we're going to have next. We have the Red Menace, 1,000 Suns and God's Wind, which sounds like I'm playing Bloodborne again, or like Elden Ring. They sound like video game bosses, dude. I assume there's some of the previous subject matter we've had there. You better not have a jump scare. It's just an intermission. The Red Menace, 2:30. Ah, nice stacking there in the octaves. Ba-ba-ba-boom, ba-ba-ba-boom, boom, boom, ba-ba-ba-boom. I thought we were going to have like some sort of Star Wars kind of theme going on here for a minute.
So many good people say to me, well, I'm just an ordinary person, living an ordinary life. I don't even know any communists. What can I do? The first important thing you can do is to be sure you know what communism really is.
Oh?
And how socialism ties in with it. In other words, know your enemy. Above all, get understanding. Know both communism and socialism for what they are and what they are not. How they operate, what their goals are, why some people are attracted to them. Whoever you are, wherever you are, discuss the Red Menace with your neighbors, your friends, your business.
Was this like a real thing that was occurring in the States at that point in time? Because this is like the 80s, isn't it? This is the 80s that they're talking about it. Was the 80s just full of people suffering from barbiturate poisoning and the fear of socialism? Because, like, I'm not trying to minimize the fear of nuclear Armageddon. In fact, if I remember correctly, the States actually came very, very close at one point to sending a missile over. Someone, I think, there was a machine error or something like that, and the wrong command got sent. And they were very, very, very close to actually sending a missile over, like a nuclear missile over, and it got stopped at the last minute. Feel free to go. I know that sounds sketchy as hell. Feel free to Google it. I remember reading about it, and I think I got it verified. But also, if that's wrong, let me know so that I know never to say it again. It was a pretty intense time, to be fair. People were really afraid of that coming along and everything that included, you know?
You learn to be on the alert after you know your enemy, and after you become politically active. You learn what you are to be alert for. Are you a factory worker, a member of a union, a trade association, a service club, or a church? Be alert to spot anyone promoting the communist line and working their way into some position of authority.
Oh my goodness, this like gospel, this choir that we've got going on here, almost like that kind of religious propaganda element of it. It's almost like they're trying to insinuate that this is like a conservative thing, you know what I mean?
They may not even be fellow travelers. They may be only communist dupes, but they are dangerous.
Oh, great job with the distorted guitars. It's incredibly heavy and intense, isn't it? Are we going to go just into a progressive metal album or something like that? Because I'd be keen for that, eh? Get some new metal in there, Carl Anderson. Nice marching drum here, like we're going to war or something like that, you know? I'm gonna be sad when this is over. I'm really vibing with this theme. Boom. Oh, see, I tried to join in, but I missed it.
A grave threat to our nation, to our freedom, to the peace of the world.
Damn, that's an interesting statement there. Thousand Suns, track number 7. Is this a plane? Are we in a plane at the moment? Is this plane Foley? Is this the start to Surf the Alien? Reminds me of Joe Satriani track. Surfing with the Alien, right. Oh, we got those kind of new wave synths. That electro groove to it. Nice pitch shifting there. I dig it, man. It's cool. Having that gradual decrease in the pitch there, that almost Portamento-esque kind of vibe is. It does kind of tie into what we had previously, doesn't it? But then I also have no idea where we're going because none of this music has been predictable.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Since it may be used against us, we must get ready for it, just as we are ready for many other dangers that are around us all the time. Fire is a danger. It can burn whole buildings if someone is careless. But we are ready for fire. We have a fine fire department to put out the fire, and you have fire drills in your school so you know what to do. Automobiles can be dangerous too. They sometimes cause bad accidents, but we are ready. We have safety rules that car drivers and people who are walking must obey. Now, we must be ready for a new danger, the atomic bomb. First, you have to know what happens when
Nice work having that really low, ominous additional synth layer come in. Blah, blah. You know, this is the boss. This is the boss battle coming up. You know?
The atomic bomb explodes. You will know when it comes. We hope it never comes, but we must get ready. It looks something like this. There is a bright flash, brighter than the sun, brighter than anything you've ever seen. If you are not ready, did not know what to do, it could hurt you in different ways. It could knock you down hard, or throw you against a tree or a wall. It is such a big explosion, it can smash in buildings and knock signboards over and break windows all over town. But if you duck and cover, you will be much safer.
Well, that's good to know. I didn't think I'd be getting a tutorial on how to survive a nuclear blast, although considering what Russia's been up to at the moment, you never know.
You know how bad sunburn can feel. The atomic bomb flash could burn you worse than a terrible sunburn, especially where you're not covered. Our civil defense workers and our men in uniform will do everything they can to warn us before enemy planes can bring a bomb near us. You may be in your schoolyard playing when the signal comes.
This is for kids. They made this for kids. Is that how bad it was? My goodness.
Stop whatever you are doing and get to the nearest safe place fast. Always remember, the flash of an atomic bomb can come at any time, no matter where you may be. You might be out playing at home when the warning comes. Then be sure to get into the house fast.
Oh. Imagine being a kid and being warned that nuclear Armageddon could be just around the corner. This music, it's so patient despite the intensity of subject matter. Oh, we got some kind of trippy, kind of 70s, 80s kind of like psychedelic rock coming in here. Kind of reminds me of some of the anti-war songs that I heard from like the 70s. I'm kind of wondering if this is a comment on that through virtue of some of the style of music we're doing here, that we kind of aren't totally happy about the fact that it was happening in the first place. The guitar sounds like it's crying out, to be fair.
Sometimes the bomb might explode without any warning.
Yeah, it's nice to have the story come back in here, but I'm glad that we have a bit more of that guitar stuff coming in, you know? You know, we had 3 minutes of explanation and definition, and then we have a bit of a shift in the temperament of it, and then we come back and we finish off the horror film so that we all feel a little bit sadder.
Then the first thing we would know about it would be the flash. And that means duck and cover fast, wherever you are. There's no time to look around or wait. You might be eating your lunch when the flash comes. Duck and cover under the table. Then, if the explosion makes anything in the room fall down, it can't fall on you. Getting ready means we will all have to be able to take care of ourselves. The bomb might explode when there are no grown-ups near. Paul and Patty know this, and they're always ready to take care of themselves. Here they
Wow, this is getting real kind of dark, isn't it? So, like, what the kids were made to think, dude, imagine living back then. You know, I was born in 1991, so I grew up in a relatively, well, not peaceful where I lived, anyways. Obviously, we had the Twin Towers, and I think 2001, if I'm not mistaken, which was obviously terrible. And there are wars going around the world, but I didn't, I mean, like, New Zealand doesn't really have nuclear stuff going on anyways. It's so wild to hear about this. The closest we got to this kind of stuff was when we had an earthquake in the town that I live. And it destroyed quite a lot of it, and we were told what to do with earthquakes. But I can't imagine a nuclear annihilation. I can't imagine being taught about that as like a 7-year-old, you know? It was a very different time.
school on a beautiful spring day. But no matter where they go or what they do, they always try to remember what to do if the atom bomb
I don't like it. I don't like that at all. The fact that I felt like I needed to duck, even when I know it's not an actual explosion. It's like, what would you do? It's such powerful music. Just how it suddenly stops and it's just like, boom. How do you write this stuff, Carl Anderson? How do you figure this out? How do you plan this? How do you do it? It's so impressive. It's such impressive musicianship and songwriting and arrangement. But the topics, and it's just, you know, we had some really cool stuff out in Missouri Breaks. This is another step in the right direction, I think, for Carl Anderson. The last track here, God's Wind. And usually when I get given an 11-minute track to review, I'm like, how do I feel about this? You know, 11 minutes is a long time, but because of what we've had so far, I know it's probably going to be a really great time. And I think part of what allows it to be palatable for 11 minutes is because we're getting told these really interesting stories using these recordings and stuff like that. You know, we're getting taught things, and I'm actually learning stuff from this album. And it's another way of making engaging music, is educating people. It may seem obvious, but it's really not, dude. Really not. God's Wind. Is this after the explosion? Because if so, that's like genius, and I... that misty guitar there. It sounds like we're watching the outro of a film, you know, the ending credits. It sounds like the outro to the album. Like it's saying goodbye and we're not really sure why. Oh, we're rising? Where are we going, though? Okay, we're looping then. We're just articulating ourselves and trying a different angle. That's fine. Nice unison note here with those synth pads.
Fallout, which may occur miles and miles away from the blast. You need to know about fallout, what it is, how to detect it, and what to do to protect yourself against it. Everybody needs to know. Yes, this does mean you. One day, these facts may save your life. What is this fallout, anyhow? You're exposed to some radiation every day, from cosmic rays or other natural sources of radiation. These exposures are too small to hurt you. But when a wartime nuclear explosion occurs, a serious fallout follows. Thousands of tons of atomized earth, building materials, rocks, and gases may be thrown into the air. And the mushroom cloud...
I can kind of imagine like a radio with this recording going off with like a city that's flattened, you know, the particles and bits of ash and radiation falling down around you.
Containing them sometimes moves as high as 100,000 feet, nearly 20 miles up. Some of the radioactive particles spill out near the explosion site. Others may be carried for 10, 50, 100 miles or more. But how will you know if there is fallout? You can't hear, smell, taste, or see the radiation.
Thank you. Thank you. I needed something after it said you'll never know if it's there. You can't sense it. Lovely bright guitar here. Similar kind of vibe with the way we're approaching this voicing of this to 1,000 Suns. Yeah, we're not wanting to resolve that harmony. Nice exploration of the I forgot that you can't pause by pressing the space bar in this. Nice exploration of the fretboard by Carl Anderson there. I don't really know what else to comment on this. Like, a lot of what I would typically say is evident when you just listen to it. Like, we already clearly know everyone in this sort of performance can play. You know, even without me, even me disregarding what I've heard from Carl Anderson previously, like, the first few tracks of Gerald, you know, Gerald 1 to 4 was enough for you to understand that we've got some serious talent here that are on the instruments and the various parts of it, you know. But it's a real unique experience to have these recordings talking about like the barbiturates and like the nuclear missiles and the Red Menace and stuff like that. It's an experience I don't really have that often. It's been an eye-opening thing for me, you know? Great work having the saxophone coming here. It's nice, nice textural shift. Great drum groove there. Great switch up there, having not just the half bar for Phil, but the entire bar there. Just to really kind of mix things up in that latter half of this track. Great use of space as well. We're not trying to put in too many notes, we're keeping just the right amount. I wonder if this was improvised or if it was written down and planned out. It'd be interesting to know how much of this was improvised solo-wise, because just to have this solo section is just great to have this much range for Jordan Mazza to move in. I don't know what that wah sound is, whether that's a heavily modulated guitar or something like that.
Particles that produce it. The easiest time to do this without special instruments is when the fallout is settling through the air. This starts any time from about 1/2 hour to several hours after the explosion, depending on how far away you are, and it continues to fall for an hour or longer. Usually you can see the fallout. So if there has been an explosion of a nuclear weapon within 200 miles of you, you should...
200 miles of you. Within 200 miles. Imagine that. Imagine being within 200 miles of something and not being able to go outside unless it's fallout.
Every unusual concentration of dust in the air of being fallout. After an explosion in daylight, watch any unusual accumulation of dust. At night, put a white or light-colored plate outside. Examine it every 15 minutes or so. If dust is accumulated on the plate, treat it as fallout. The particles in that fallout behave like miniature X-ray machines.
I love how, like, they're telling you to be careful about fallout, but they're also like, go outside and put a plate there so that you can figure out if there's fallout. Like,
there are many particles, and if you are exposed to them long enough, you will be hurt. But it may come before you hear any details by radio or otherwise. You must take precautions, whether you hear their reports or not. If radio stations are operating, you will hear reports, especially on the Conelrad frequencies 640 or 1240 on your AM dial. As soon as it is safe for specially protected crews to get out into the open, these highly trained civil defense radiation detection teams will make a thorough check of radiation levels and characteristics.
It does sound like the music is slowly fading out aside from that bass guitar, right?
Those facts will be relayed to you by radio as fast as they come into civil defense headquarters in your area.
And that's it. That's God's win. Ooh, those are some creepy sort of ethereal, otherworldly guitar tones we're getting there. Nice call and response between the clean parts and those reverse takes. Fantastic rain foley and storm foley, dude. Incredible production. Excellent work. And that's just it. We have the rain to follow us out. How do I feel about this album? How do I feel about it now? I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it. Because, wow. God's win, dude. That was the album. Because this is the conclusion for this review of Hillbilly Heaven by Carl Anderson. Put the album art up here just for a moment, just to appreciate the magnificence of the album we have just listened through. And I don't really use magnificence often, if at all, really. It's very rare that I feel this strongly about something I've listened to, but I just have to first of all commend Carl Anderson and everyone else involved on the phenomenal work they did throughout this record. I legitimately do not know if I can really fault it. Just a spoiler alert, I legitimately think that this was as close you can get to how it needed to be done. You know, nothing is perfect, but I think that for what they were trying to accomplish here, it's damn close. If I can stand from a storytelling perspective, I think that Gerald 1 to 4 was talking about someone and the way their brain was being mucked up by things going on around them, and maybe the medications they were needing to take in order to get better. You know, their reliance on that, and you know, when they're going back to Hillbilly Heaven and stuff like that, and like their inabilities to sort of be able to control their own thoughts and the intrusive thoughts that were going on and how it was affecting the family members around them. And then we had the interesting sort of perspective of the medicine cabinet where everyone had those really highly addictive drugs in their desk of drawers. You're suddenly like, oh, great. No, suddenly, you know, we're in this position where anyone can just get really messed up on these drugs where it completely cripples them, you know? So it's almost like talking about the reliance on medication versus the risks. And it's an interesting conversation that we're having within that first act. That sort of, just the mental health issues that people have, and when you're trapped and you can't escape. And then we had that beautiful intermission before we started talking about socialism and nuclear bombs and like the arms, like the Red Menace in the 80s. It was so incredibly visceral, and I know I've used that word a few times, but I don't know how else to explain the experience I've had with Hillbilly Heaven by Carl Anderson. I haven't heard anything like it this year for sure. A lot of the albums I have either have been like, they've been storytelling ones from the person's perspective about them, or maybe they've been topics about like stuff like religion or philosophy or something like that. But to talk about the mind and then the Red Menace like this, it makes me wonder whether Carl Anderson has had some personal experience with this stuff. Regardless, it's we have ourselves a musician who is not only passionate about what they're creating, because this is, of course, I don't know whether we recorded these actual things ourselves or whether we just took those samples from other things, but the quality of those recordings was both incredibly, like, it was almost edifying to listen to because of just how everything fit together. It's testament to the skill of the arranger and composer and producer, or producers, because Carl Anderson and Marvin Menz. But it's like we never had a moment where the music didn't match the story that was being told. And just the foley that was in, like the explosions and the rain and the other little sound effects that we had with like the medicine cabinet and the symptoms of like the voices in your head and stuff like that, and how that was sort of similar to maybe what Gerald was going through and that hidden connection there. But then the birds and the intermission and stuff like that, it's the little things that you appreciate. I mean, the vocals were effectively the stories that were being told by the people within the film, within the, see, I just said film, because it sounds like I'm listening to a film. It's incredible storytelling, great use of editing and cutting up those clips. I think that was what was done there for effect. I've got nothing but love for the way that we approach this in its entirety. It's just so sensational, dude. It's so intriguing. And I just don't know, again, I don't know how we could have improved it. I think that Carl Anderson achieved the vibe they were wanting. There were moments, as you saw, I was visibly uncomfortable or visibly engaged, you know. As a composer, as a songwriter, as a producer, as whatever associated with what we're doing today, you need to make sure that the person that is listening to your music cares about what you're doing, and I certainly cared. And I'll be honest with you, if someone was like, yo, do you want to hear my album about like drug abuse and socialism and nuclear bombs? To be honest, I probably would still be kind of keen, but at the same time, not as much as I am at this point, because we got led into it. And it was a risky decision having a 6 minutes 40 at the start. You know, it's a long track to start the album with, but at the same time, it just carried you through it effortlessly. It wasn't even a challenge, you know. It's testament again to everyone, that the people involved in this album and the skill they have in writing, recording, performing the music. These tracks were, my understanding, through composed. You know, you had several sections. Some of them had voiceovers or like Foley bits or whatever. It was nice to have some through composed music for a change. While I enjoy the verse, you know, bridge chorus kind of vibe that we have a lot of the time, it's nonetheless just refreshing to have this as a separate thing. You know, you can tell stories both ways. The music can be great both ways. It's always good to experiment. And the experimentation, I think, worked well for Carl Anderson. Again, I think we had similar stuff happen in Missouri Breaks. It's just a niche that he's in where it works for him, and I really hope that he continues to do it, because he's got a knack for creating some really great music again, because I'm really happy with what I listened to today from Hillbilly Heaven. The performances on, you know, guitar, bass, piano, keys, you know, strings arrangements, the drums, the saxophone, trumpets, violin. And I'm not sure where the human toboggan came in. I'm not sure if that's like a meme or if that's like actually a human toboggan. I'm kind of scared. We should Google it, shouldn't we? Yeah, no, it was a meme. I'm not sure what human toboggan is. Sir Robert Bjelland. It's okay. Look, it's all good. I spoke about the various instrumental performances there, but there was no notes out of place. When there were solo sections, they were soulful, attentive to the mood of the piece, attentive to the mood of the story being told. And they also matched the energy of the other surrounding instruments. We also knew when to pull back for those quieter, more ambient sections as well. Beautiful voicing, the saxophone, trumpets, and violin and guitar solo parts especially. The bass was lovely in our sort of foundational supportive rhythm range. And the drums, they never stopped grooving. And even when we didn't have a full-on kind of 8th, 16th note groove going on there, we were doing quarters or fills or break beats or whatever. Or we just had the kicks and the cymbals, you know? There was that range and that sort of fundamental understanding of how to keep the percussion valid in a sea of other harmonic and monophonic instruments. And Carl Anderson and crew nailed it. I think finally, the production and recording, mixing and mastering was sensational. Don't, just keep doing that. You know, the EQing, stereo panning, effects change on the various instruments. The limiting compression, flawless, man. Just, yeah, I don't know what you could do to improve that. It's professional and it's where you need to be in order to get somewhere music nowadays. And yeah, just as a closing note, thank you. Thank you for making this album. Again, for someone like me, I wasn't around back when the Red Menace, I mean, actually, we here we are in 2022, you know, with the stuff happening with Russia and Ukraine. So I was about to say we haven't had any issues with the Red Menace. You know, I know the USSR doesn't exist anymore technically, but it's interesting times. I just, it's weird to live in a time. I can't imagine being a kid and being told that. It's just, and don't even get me started on the barbiturates and the voices and stuff like that, dude. It's just too much for me. It's just too much for me. But look, thank you very much for watching this review of Hillbilly Heaven by Carl Anderson. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show Carl Anderson some love via his various social medias and his Bandcamp. Stay cool and stay safe, and please also remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.